big area of 500 homes was chosen, part of a recent council housing development which will eventually resettle families from Liverpool and the overcrowded towns on the Wirral Peninsula. The estate provided a typical cross-section of the community. Once the go-ahead was given, Bowaters sent a test team to the estate to study dustbin collection. This study was not just devoted to stopwatch timings, although these played an important part, but rather to examining the wider issues and their effects on householder, council, and dustman. That dustbin collection was slow and arduous revealed itself early in these studies, and so too did the fact that it was a dirty operation. Unpleasant enough for the neighborhood, but more so for the dustman. Noise, too, in these days is a social problem. In fact, it's a personal one if you happen to be a shift worker trying to sleep on collection day. Rainwater doesn't help either. If the bin lid is left off and the refuse saturated, then it can double its weight. Lifting now becomes a job for two men. Whichever way you look at it, 4 journeys to empty one bin is not only time wasting, it also makes for an exhausting day's work. The next step in the pilot scheme was the fitting of the holders. Bowater representatives canvassed the householders, first by letter, and later with personal visits to explain the fitting of the sack. The refuse sack itself was tailor-made to the individual requirements of the scheme. The simply fitted wall holders had been tested to withstand a weight in excess of 80 pounds. The sack is clamped on the interior of the rim by means of 2 spring clips. Hygiene is improved because the sack protects the holding rim from contamination. The well-fitting lid ensures that bad odors are well and truly trapped beneath it. Inside the lid, the simple instructions show the correct way of securing the sack to the galvanized rim, the householder's only responsibility. The freestanding model was also popular. Its tubular steel frame made it easy to move but rigid in use. The operation of the system was discussed with the dustmen, and they were well versed for the first collection day. Breakfast behind them, and for once, an easier day in front of them. The team has been cut. 3 men now do the job previously done by 4. Each man makes only 1 trip to a house, carrying the replacement sack with him and leaving it under the lid of the holder. Releasing the sack was a simple job. Some households have always needed more than 1 dustbin. But this presented no problem because it's an easy matter to handle 2 sacks. 2 dustbins used to mean 6 trips. By screwing the necks of the sacks, the dustman can carry them at arm's length, so cutting out shoulder humping. The refuse vehicle used in the pilot scheme was the same one as was used for dustbin collection. It was found that it carried the same amount of refuse in sacks as it had loose. After 5 weeks of collection, the 500 homes of the scheme were canvassed to discover what the residents thought about the refuse sack.
I had a lot of advantage because there's no noise with it, and the baby can't reach the toilet to dip the bin, and they're much more cleaner, and there's no noise to it at all. Well, I think they're much more hygienic than the other dustbins. When the other dustbins were brought back after emptying, there was always a certain amount of dust left in the bottom.
Well, my idea is, I think they're safer in this respect. When we had the galvanized bins, my daughter used to have a habit of climbing onto the bin and then onto the shed, and she was always falling. But now, since we've got this, she doesn't seem to bother. She doesn't go near it.
I think it's a very good idea myself, because a lot lighter to use and not quite so heavy as the metal bins. It's easier for the bin man. He doesn't have to make so many journeys to carry in as he goes to emptying them.
And what had the dustmen say?
Well, you get a bin that's cut on the bottom and the jagged edges on it. You cut your hand, well, there's none of that with a paper sack.
Do your clothes last longer?
Oh, a lot longer. You get a bin that's wet and it'll run out over your clothes and make them stink, and you've got to throw them away.
Do your mates like it?
Yes, they like it. It's a lot cleaner for them and not so much dust. With a bin you get a lot of dust and it blows in your eyes.
Why is it easier at the tip?
Well, you just chip up and it all slides out, whereas when you're chipping bins in, it's all wet and it sticks to the sides and it's got to be scraped out.
There were other advantages at the tip. After they had been dumped, the sacks bedded down firmly, providing a solid base for the dust cart to run over. At Ellesmere Port, the sacks were run out in special fingers, making it easier to check the decomposition of individual loads. It was essential to know whether the decomposition of refuse in sacks followed the same pattern as that of loose refuse. Bowater's research department arranged for probes to be sunk after each week's load had been bedded down. This would enable them to keep a constant check on the decomposition time and temperature. Vitally important if the tipping end of the operation was to be a success. Great interest in the progress of the scheme was shown by the Ellesmere Port Council, and the council's cleansing department put into operation a weekly probe reading. The improved hygiene of the paper sack system is discussed here by Ellesmere Port's Chief Public Health Inspector, Mr. Emlyn Tuft.
It is a well-known fact that flies spread disease, and as the use of the paper sack will discourage fly breeding, the system from this aspect alone must be considered a progressive step in the field of environmental hygiene. The paper sack and holder present a pleasing appearance, with the sack non-returnable. This is a change of much momentum, for the progress that can be made may be likened to the period when replacements of the old ash bits took place many years ago.
And so the paper sack has proved itself at Ellesmere Port. For 50 years, refuse collection has been a noisy, dirty operation. The Bowater system has replaced these drawbacks with positive advantages. Improved hygiene, reduced labor costs, easier tipping, faster collection. And what is most important, cleaner, safer working conditions. At last, recruitment will be easier as the dustman achieves a new status. This first pilot scheme has encouraged other councils to try the Bowater sack system. It is proving a great success with householder, dustman, and council alike. My old man may be a dustman, but life's a lot simpler with the paper sack.